BRICS now represents over 40% of global GDP. BRICS members hold more people, more oil, and more farmland than the Western-led order BRICS claims to challenge. And yet the US dollar has barely flinched. Understanding why tells you everything about how global power actually works. To understand that gap, you need to go back to where BRICS actually came from, and why BRICS was never supposed to exist at all. In November 2001, a Goldman Sachs economist named Jim O'Neill published a 15-page investment memo. The memo was titled, "Building Better Global Economic BRICS," and it was Global Economics paper number 66. O'Neill was not designing a geopolitical alliance. Goldman Sachs was identifying growth markets for investment clients. The memo argued that Brazil, Russia, India, and China were set to drive the global economy for the next 50 years. O'Neill noted that global policymaking forums, especially the G7, should be reorganized to include these emerging giants. The 4 countries named in that memo read the paper and decided to become the thing the memo described. The first BRICS Leaders Summit took place in Yekaterinburg, Russia, in 2009, 8 years after the Goldman Sachs memo coined the term. South Africa joined in 2010, completing the 5-letter acronym that would appear in every geopolitical headline for the following decade. From an investment analyst's label, BRICS had become a real international organization with annual summits, working groups, and shared institutions. In 2015, BRICS members established the new Development Bank, specifically designed to fund infrastructure without the political conditions that IMF loans typically require. The NDB started as a counterweight to Western-dominated development finance, with equal governance rights for all 5 founding members. For its first decade, BRICS stayed small, cautious, and mostly symbolic. Annual communiques were long on solidarity and short on binding commitments. That changed sharply at the 2023 Johannesburg Summit in South Africa. BRICS extended membership invitations to 6 new countries: Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The expansion reflected a real shift in global politics. Russia's invasion of Ukraine had deepened divisions between Western-aligned and non-aligned nations. Dozens of countries had refused to join Western sanctions on Russia, and many were looking for alternative economic frameworks. But the 2023 expansion immediately revealed BRICS's internal tensions. Argentina accepted the invitation, then reversed course. Newly elected President Javier Milei formally declined BRICS membership in December 2023, signaling a pro-Western economic direction. Saudi Arabia was invited and publicly said BRICS membership was under consideration. As of mid-2025, Saudi Arabia has still not formally joined. Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates became full BRICS members in January 2024. Indonesia joined as the 10th full member in January 2025. In January 2025, BRICS also added 9 partner countries, a second-tier category for nations interested in closer ties without full membership. The result? BRICS now represents roughly half of the world's population and over 40% of global GDP measured by purchasing power parity. The comparison with the G7 looks striking on paper. BRICS members account for over 40% of global GDP by purchasing power parity, compared to roughly 30% for the G7. BRICS members control a majority of the world's proven oil reserves and hold enormous shares of global grain and mineral production. BRICS countries represent virtually all of the world's future population growth. On raw numbers, the G7 is now the minority coalition. But numbers aggregate very differently from power, and inside BRICS, one number changes everything. China accounts for approximately 65 to 70% of BRICS nominal GDP. Even under purchasing power parity calculations, China alone represents over half of BRICS's combined economic output. For comparison, the United States accounts for roughly 40% of G7 GDP. China's dominance inside BRICS is even more pronounced. Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa combined are, in purely economic terms, a rounding error next to China within BRICS. BRICS is not a coalition of equals. In economic weight, BRICS is approximately China, plus a platform that gives China multilateral legitimacy. Every member state must privately answer the same question: are the benefits of BRICS membership worth operating inside China's gravitational pull? No relationship inside BRICS makes the question harder than the one between India and China. India and China share the world's most contested land boundary, 3,488 kilometers of disputed Himalayan frontier. The two countries fought a brief but devastating border war in 1962. Periodic standoffs have continued across the following 6 decades. Then, in June 2020, Indian and Chinese soldiers fought hand-to-hand in the Galwan Valley in eastern Ladakh. 20 Indian soldiers were killed in the Galwan Valley clash. China later confirmed 4 soldiers dead, with other estimates placing Chinese casualties significantly higher. It was the deadliest confrontation between the two countries in over 50 years. India's response was immediate. Within weeks, the Indian government banned 59 Chinese apps, including TikTok, WeChat, and UC Browser, citing national security. Successive bans followed. By 2022, India had banned approximately 224 Chinese applications. Public trust between the two countries collapsed. India restricted Chinese investment in critical infrastructure sectors. Surveys in India showed public opinion toward China reaching historic lows. And yet, India and China continued to sit at the same BRICS table. Annual BRICS summits proceeded. Joint communiques were signed. Both countries called each other development partners in the same press releases. This is the paradox at BRICS's center, and it only makes sense once you understand that India and China want completely different things from BRICS. China wants BRICS to become a functional alternative architecture to Western financial institutions. China wants the yuan normalized, Chinese-led institutions treated as legitimate, and a world where US sanctions carry no weight. India wants something else entirely: strategic autonomy. India refuses to be locked into either the American-led order or the Chinese-led alternative. BRICS membership keeps India's options open without alignment. These visions are not compatible. India consistently blocks proposals that would give BRICS a binding structure or a formal agenda. Chinese voices within BRICS have grown frustrated. The bloc that China imagined, the unified challenger to the Western order, cannot be built while India remains committed to non-alignment. The internal contradiction is not a flaw that BRICS might eventually fix. The contradiction is structural, and it runs directly through the bloc's two most populous members. The issue that generates the most BRICS headlines, de-dollarization, is also where the gap between rhetoric and reality is widest. BRICS leaders have discussed reducing dependence on the US dollar at virtually every summit since 2009. At the 2023 Johannesburg summit, de-dollarization was the dominant theme. Several leaders raised the possibility of a shared BRICS currency. That idea was formally dropped. Brazil, India, and other members noted that a shared currency requires deep economic integration that BRICS does not have. The more realistic goal became expanding trade in local currencies: yuan, rupees, reals, rands, rather than creating any new monetary unit. Russia, under severe Western financial sanctions since 2022, had the strongest incentive to build dollar-free infrastructure. During Russia's 2024 BRICS presidency, Moscow proposed BRICS Bridge, a distributed ledger platform enabling central bank settlements in local currencies without touching SWIFT. A companion proposal, BRICS Clear, would create an independent settlement and depository system for securities trading. Both proposals were discussed at the October 2024 Kazan summit in Russia. Both were endorsed for further study. Neither was formally launched. The Kazan Declaration committed to no operational timetable for BRICS Bridge or BRICS Clear. The dollar's actual position tells the real story. The US dollar's share of global payments processed through SWIFT reached approximately 49 to 50% in 2024, a 12-year high. While BRICS leaders were issuing de-dollarization statements, the dollar's SWIFT market share was rising, not falling. Local currency bilateral trade between China and Russia has genuinely expanded, but bilateral trade between two sanctioned economies is not a global payment system. The honest reading: de-dollarization is a real long-term trend. The infrastructure needed to achieve de-dollarization at BRICS scale does not yet exist. The new development bank offers the clearest window into what BRICS can actually deliver, as opposed to what BRICS promises. The NDB has approved over $40 billion across more than 120 projects since inception, with more than $22 billion already disbursed. NDB projects focus on infrastructure, clean energy, and transportation across emerging economies, and the bank has expanded to over a dozen members. Unlike the IMF, the NDB imposes no structural adjustment conditions on borrowers, no required privatizations, no mandated subsidy cuts. For developing countries, the NDB's no conditionality model represents genuine value. But the NDB's total portfolio remains dwarfed by the IMF's capacity of over $1 trillion in quota resources. The NDB is a real institution delivering real financing. The NDB is not yet a systemic alternative to the Bretton Woods financial architecture. So why does BRICS keep expanding, even as internal contradictions deepen and delivery falls short of the rhetoric? The answer is that different members extract genuinely different value from membership, and the cost of joining is close to zero. Russia gains symbolic non-isolation. Sitting at a summit alongside the world's two most populous countries signals that Russia remains a legitimate global actor despite Western sanctions. China gains multilateral legitimacy for a non-Western-led order. Every new BRICS member is one more country treating Chinese-led institutions as normal. India gains strategic optionality, the ability to refuse alignment with Washington or Beijing while remaining present in every major multilateral conversation. Smaller members, Egypt, Ethiopia, UAE, Indonesia, gain NDB financing access, expanded trade networks, and a platform where Global South priorities receive formal attention. For every member, the cost of participation is minimal. BRICS has no binding rules, no enforcement mechanism, and no mandatory fiscal contribution beyond the NDB. BRICS keeps growing because the benefits are real, the costs are near zero, and no one is required to agree on anything. The honest assessment of BRICS is more nuanced than either its advocates or its critics typically allow. BRICS is not a rival superpower. BRICS has no shared military alliance, no common foreign policy, and no governance mechanism that binds member states to collective action. BRICS is not irrelevant. The new development bank is financing real infrastructure. Local currency bilateral trade is genuinely expanding. Over 30 additional countries want in. BRICS is best understood as a legitimacy platform, a space where the world's largest non-Western economies collectively signal that the post-1945 international order is not the only possible order. That signal carries real consequences. Western institutions respond to BRICS's existence even when BRICS cannot act. In the next decade, 3 questions will determine whether BRICS becomes something more. The first: can India and China manage the rivalry inside BRICS without fracturing the bloc's consensus model? The second: will BRICS payment infrastructure, BRICS Bridge, BRICS Clear, expanded local currency trade, reach the scale required to meaningfully reduce dollar dependence? The third: does the expanded membership produce a coherent shared agenda, or simply make internal disagreements deeper and harder to resolve? BRICS began as a Goldman Sachs investment memo. BRICS became a development bank, a summit declaration, and a geopolitical concept that rising economies around the world want to associate with. Whether BRICS becomes a functional alternative architecture for the global economy is one of the most consequential open questions in international affairs today. And the answer will not come from a summit communiqué. The answer will come from whether the infrastructure gets built, and whether the members can agree on what BRICS is actually for. Here is the question worth sitting with. BRICS now commands more global GDP than the G7, but no shared currency, no operational payment system, and its 2 most powerful democratic members are locked in a strategic rivalry. Do you think BRICS has what it takes to genuinely reshape the global financial order in the next 20 years? Or will BRICS remain the most sophisticated legitimacy platform in geopolitics? Drop your answer below. Every comment gets read. If World Stages is where you come to understand how the global economy actually works, subscribe. New videos every week.